Welcome to my listening session. This passage is from Book 3 of the Ari Adams Mystery Series, and it's titled Deadly Intersections. In this scene, Ari's girlfriend, Detective Molly Nelson, and her partner, Detective Andre Watson, are assigned a case involving the death of a child, a case that will prove harrowing for Molly, especially when it connects with another case, one that involves Ari. This is Deadly Intersection. Molly rubbed her eyes and stared at the spreadsheets she'd set on the bar. The numbers seemed to blur together, and she blinked several times to clear her head. All of the entries began with 6815, four numbers she was sure were part of an address, the address of a mole in the police department, a person who'd had her informant decapitated and stuffed in a trunk. She'd combed the list of owners many times looking for a clue, but so far none of the individual names or corporations stood out. It might help if you weren't drinking in a bar, she thought. She drained her second scotch and motioned to Vicky, the bartender. Vicky poured another round, her eyebrow raised. "This is a little early for you, Molly." "Who are you, my AA sponsor?" Vicky shook her head and walked away. It was their latest running joke. Vicky was the only person allowed to comment on Molly's drinking. Not even Ari, Molly's girlfriend, got to say anything. She understood it was a taboo topic, but Molly imagined if Ari knew that she was frequenting the Hideaway bar nearly every day, she would vehemently object. She'd also be crushed if she learned that her drinking coincided with their recent declaration of love and commitment. Molly gulped her drink and stared into the empty glass. She loved Ari, she knew that, but she couldn't understand how a woman with the body of a goddess would want a woman built like a linebacker. She lived in fear that Ari would someday ask herself the same question. Yet, after 8 months, Ari remained. Her cell phone chirped, and she frowned when she saw that it was Andre. Why would he be calling on a Sunday? "What's up?" "We're working, Moll. It's a big case. 10-year-old girl shot at Washington School. I'm on my way to the crime scene. Get your ass down here." Washington School stood like an old watchman over South Phoenix. Built in 1917, the school was a throwback to the East Coast design, a single rectangular building with 2 stories. Rows of parallel windows wrapped around the entire structure, and a set of steep concrete steps led up to the enormous front doors. Molly and Andre stared at the facade. The majesty it possessed in past decades had vanished. Every window pane was riddled with holes from rocks or bullets. The thousands of tan bricks lining the exterior were faded from the unforgiving Arizona sun. A dozen crime techs and officers scoured the grounds as they walked across the dusty remnants of the schoolyard, patches of hardy Bermuda grass still visible and kept alive by the intermittent rains. Andre's gaze swept the property. "When did they close this place?" Molly shook her head. "I don't know, a long time ago, and now it just sits here." They stopped in front of the swing set, the crime scene tape loosely draped around the poles in haphazard fashion. A tarp rested over the body, and Andre squatted lifting up a corner while Molly turned away. She hated looking at dead kids. She stared at the swing, wondering if the little girl had been terrified or if she'd known her killer and death was just an unexpected moment free of fear. Molly sucked in her breath as a wave of nausea passed through her. She closed her eyes, wishing she was back at the Hideaway. "Tell me what we know." "Victim is Maria Perez," Andre said. "She was found in front of the swings. There's a dirt scrape here that suggests she was trying to stop the swing because she was going to run away," Molly added. He nodded. "Maybe. It's hard to know. Shot at point-blank range with a .38. Took 1 bullet to the chest and fell to the ground. Found around 5 by 2 teenagers coming out to make out on the bench over there." They walked the 20 feet to the bench. It was old, and Molly couldn't imagine anyone sitting on the rotten wood. Yet the ground was littered with condom wrappers, suggesting that more than kissing occurred on the warped planks. "Are the techs searching the school?" she asked, her gaze settling on the 2 end rows of windows, the ones facing the playground. "Yeah, but so far they haven't found anything. Not that it would be easy. The place is a mess. Tons of trash everywhere, vermin and bugs. There wasn't anything obvious." Obvious, she repeated. Let's go across the grounds first. Andre read from his notes. The teenagers told the first officer that everybody knows to stay away from the school. That's for the drug users only. I guess the kids play on the equipment and the addicts leave the kids alone, sort of an unspoken rule. They silently walked the perimeter, going around the long way. He pointed at a piece of fence ripped away from its post. Judging from its location, it was an entry for the drug users, away from the street, away from the patrol cars. Only a zealous cop, one who wanted to go looking for trouble, would bother to get out and inspect the area on foot, which was unlikely to happen very often. They rounded the back side of the building, and Molly saw a second hole, the one the children used. She realized the school sat on a huge plot of land, and indeed it would be possible for the addicts and street people to enter through the east side of the fence and never know there were children to the west. She doubted the two groups came in contact, but perhaps they had yesterday. They headed toward the school as the last crime tech exited with a shake of his head toward Andre. Molly scowled, almost certain they'd missed a clue. Her gut told her there was something inside. She was sure of it. The smell assaulted her as she crossed the threshold. She immediately shone her flashlight at her feet, worried that she'd stepped in excrement or a rat would scurry across her loafer. The path in front of her was clear, but trash and drug paraphernalia lined the walls. She imagined the classrooms were equally disgusting, if not worse. They stepped into the first room they came to, the winter sun already struggling to set. A weak light seeped across the floor, the filthy windows obscuring the brightness she'd hoped to find. "This is practically hopeless today," she murmured. "We need to come back tomorrow." "Can't we do it now?" Andre whined. She threw him a glare. She knew he hated to get dirty. "Quit being such a princess." That concludes this listening session. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, listen to other sessions, and visit my website, annroberts.net.